Oh my goodness. We got a great show planned today. We're going to talk a little bit about bidding and more bidding from a lot of different perspectives. We're going to talk about maybe get into some, I don't want to call it deceptive math, but it's more of, gosh, I'm trying to think of a good way to say this. It's right, but it's clickbait, but it's accurate, but it can be in obvious, and also it's accurate not being accurate. And I'll explain that here in a little bit. But what I mean by that is earlier today, I had two really, really intelligent people with a whole lot of formal education. I don't have a whole lot of formal education. I'll just come out and say it. Went to school, but not a lot of formal education, but I got pretty good business experience in education and school of hard knocks education. But, uh, but I had a couple people looking at something that I saw online, and technically, yes, it's correct. And when I say these people are fairly well educated, I mean master's degrees at minimum, math degrees. One of those people were Katie, and one was somebody else that I didn't ask her about using her name, so I'm not going to throw her name out there. But people that are very well in tune to numbers and math and that whole side of things. So we're so I know that the answers that they got are accurate, but also I'm going to say the numbers that we looked and saw online were accurate, but a little, if you didn't know any better, you wouldn't know any better. So we'll leave it at that. So we're going to talk a little bit about that today. But before we get into all that, but we are going to make some comparisons. I did see another video from a gentleman that I wanted to talk a little bit about and address myself in a very professional way, because he was actually saying, "Hey, just I don't understand. Explain it to me." So we're gonna talk about that today as well. We're going to talk, and along with a lot of other things, but we're going to talk about why it's important to know your hourly cost, even though you're using flat rate pricing. And the flat rate pricing aspect is a great way to price jobs. Very profitable, very, very profitable. 99.97636% of what we do here at WLS is flat rate. You know, but we're going to talk about that and why it's so important, why it's so important to understand the methodologies of both, and understand why you don't start out and take a number, say, well, last year I did, and I'm just going to make a number up. This could be, fill in the number for you. Okay. It doesn't matter what the number is, but the reality of it says last year I did $300,000, let's say. Okay. But my expenses were 200,000. So I made 100,000. Let's just go with it being that simplified and over simple. Okay. Well, that's one way of saying, well, hey, I'm doing okay, man. What's the difference in how much what my hourly cost? Why I don't want, I don't understand my hourly cost. So that's what we're going to talk about, is why it's important to understand hourly cost, even though you're flat rate pricing, so that you don't go from the top of that house to the foundation to see what the profit margin is. Let's figure out cost, sell what the market will bear, and we're going to talk about that to get to projected profit margin, and then the realistic profit margin when it's all said and done, regardless of what system you use. So we're going to talk about that, and I'm sure we're going to get some input from you guys as we move along. But before we get into all that, I got a big old shout out going to Jeopardy here at Wayne's Lawn Service, one of our applicators. It's her birthday today. Happy birthday, Jeopardy. And just by chance, if you're listening to the podcast version of this, wanted to give you a big old happy birthday. And she also has her second child coming in about 16 weeks or 15 weeks. So she's got a lot of excitement going on in her life right now, as you can imagine. So, but I did want to give her a big shout out. Also, I wanted to talk about more rain in our forecast here in Louisville today, and a lot of areas in this part of the country. There's something new for you, right? So I reached out to my buddies at BAM, and I'm going to see if I can get Brett or Matt on with me Friday to talk about this scenario. So, and all this rain and when it's going to stop, because I know it's like for you guys too. I mean, it's just all over. It's everywhere. And probably when it stops, it's going to stop and the shit's going to get bad. And that's the way it's going to be. But, man, I know one thing. I'm ready to try a different look at life on weather, quite honestly. It's just something else. I did, we're supposed to have some severe weather potentially later this afternoon, late afternoon, early evening time frame, or maybe over. So we'll see what that looks like. BAM's telling us low end tornado risk, but high end wind and potential hail. So we'll see how that goes. One thing, and I'm knock on wood, I'm not happy about it, but I am getting a new roof out of the weather we've had this spring. So I'm just hoping that we get done with most of this weather before they get my new roof on. So, so yeah, I'm kind of looking forward to my new roof, but because it'll be, it's weird when you get to my age, man. You're saying, man, this is the last roof I'll put on that house unless something really weird happens. When you start buying shit for the last time in your life, and I don't mean that in a bad way. I mean, 25 years from now, I'm not going to be in that house. I mean, I'll be 87 if I'm alive, and which I got a potential maybe of being alive. I don't know, but there's my buddy. Oh, Aaron Walls. God, let's answer it for him. We'll answer it for him. Let's see what we got here. Aaron Walls, you're live on Turfs Up Radio, my friend.
Later, I have a big announcement.
You're pregnant.
Close, but I heard you're getting a new roof. I have one request. Don't get metal and don't get gutter guards. That's all I've got.
Don't get metal and don't get gutter guards. All right,
yes,
that's fair enough. Why not? No, why not gutter guards?
Christmas lights.
Oh, are they a pain?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Well, okay. Well, good. There you go. See, there you see. If nothing else, I say I learned something from you guys all the time. Just, I try to put out some good information to help guys, and that's something to help me. So, what makes Christmas lights and metal roofs hard to deal with?
Uh, Man, they're just a challenge. Nothing wants to slide under them. The magnets don't want to stick to them. You got to stick the bulbs real far back, and they don't hang out over the edge. It's clean.
Well, I got an idea,
just,
man. Why don't you reach out to
what?
somebody on YouTube that's done about 6, 7 lighting jobs and find out how you ought to do those? They're experts. They're all over YouTube. These guys that got 12 days of experience.
They are out there. Of course, I've done it, but I haven't.
You could get a lot of good advice, I'm sure. Come on.
Oh, yeah.
You know?
You just filter through it.
Oh my, you're the YouTube guru. I can tell you. You're and I don't mean this in a bad way, but you're a YouTube prostitute, man.
Look, you guys do something that I said to do on YouTube, it's your fault, not mine.
But no, that makes really good sense, man, about the metal. So yeah, thanks for telling us about that a year ago, So
yeah. Well, that's all I had. I know you got some good stuff planned ahead, and this is where the entertainment meets education. So I don't want to take up your time. Later.
Oh no, man! Hey, you're very educational. I tell you all the time, you don't give yourself enough credit for that. But yeah, we got a good show. We're going to talk about a couple things. I got my buddy, and I know we got a lot of listeners that that have bought into some of these franchises that you can buy into around the country, and
yeah.
Yeah, so that's cool. We're going to talk a little bit about that today, and something else that we got from them, and another franchise I think it was called Heroes, if I'm not mistaken, a landscape. And there's no pun on words with that. I can't remember exactly what it was. I thought I took a picture of it last night, but
There's one in Evansville.
is there? Is that right? Heroes?
Yeah,
Yeah. And
yeah. I think Mike Marlowe has one
does he? I,
out there in Nebraska.
I clicked on it, and they looked like a really good franchise to get involved with. By the way, and I clicked on it just to see what the process was, and it was pretty cool. You had to have I think it was $60,000 or $70,000 in liquid assets, a credit score over 800, or no, it wasn't 800. It was 680. Credit score over 680, 60,000 in liquid assets, and I don't know. It had several things, and then once you answered yes to those, then it got into some other things. So uh, yeah, I was just checking it out. So, but yeah, there's nothing wrong with getting involved in franchises, not at all. But but anyways,
Yeah.
hey, stay
Make sure it's
tuned,
the
man.
right one.
Yeah, yeah.
I will.
Make
Thanks for
sure.
letting me have. Come on.
Oh, no problem, man. We're always going to answer the phone for the Purple Walrus. You know,
Well, I appreciate it.
that's all right, man. You're my hero.
Heroes Lawn Care.
Zero, man. See you, man.
All
Bye.
right, beware.
Bye.
Bye.
All right. That is the world famous Aaron. Seth, appreciate you listening. Seth says, sharpened his blades last night so the dew would cut good this morning. Absolutely. I got that. Oh, Katie's got an example of what we were talking about. Oh, Jesus. Sorry. We might we hadn't got that far yet. Katie's been working on another thing back here for us. So yeah, to talk about today, when I was talking about my math gurus, it was Katie and another lady that I've got a ton of confidence in that Katie worked with, and they're both really good at numbers. But yeah, Seth, I hope your blades are working well on that dew that you're cutting today. And Daniel's on here with me today. Daniel, thanks, man.
Yeah.
And
Be on.
looking forward to that. Mike said definitely a year to remember. True that, Mike. Yeah,
For many reasons, yeah.
For many reasons, to say the least. Mike, I would just want to let you know Tabitha's coming your way today for some in-service training. She's going to Glasgow, so headed that way. So we may need you.
Glasgow.
So how far? That's not. That's right there in that Bowling Green area. I'm pretty confident. Mike, let me know for sure. But I think it is. I mean, I'm not a geographic expert.
I think Katie probably has a good.
But yeah, Katie could help us out with that. That's an inside joke. But anyways, but hey, I did want to give my buddy Hecapus a shout out too. That's listening to us. He texted me this morning and said he was listening. So it's always great to have him listening to us as well. So thank you for tuning in, Hecapus. We certainly appreciate that. Had a weird thing happen in one of our landscape guys came back to get some connectors and things on a job that were added on. And he was telling me about getting asked to leave a property this morning. So I don't know if that happens to you all ever, but yeah, lady had a cabinet company or something coming to install some cabinets and ask if we could leave, not just move. Now, this was not a residential project. This was a small commercial HOA going on. Thanks, Mike. Mike said it's a county over about 30, 40 minutes for him. So yeah, it's in that vicinity. But anyways, we'll see how that goes. Kyle just got back in, so maybe do we get to go back and do it to finish the job? I can't imagine getting ran off of a complex. Like there's nowhere for them to park. Well, there is places we could move somewhere else and park. I mean, that's that would be my vote there. Hey, I'm sorry, but they're not more important than you are, and you're not more important than. What's your opinion on that, Daniel?
They got ran off by who?
Just a resident there that was getting cabinets put in, kind of like you, your door finally. Maybe she's like that. Maybe she's been put off on getting her cabinets put in, and she's like, y'all gonna have to leave. Y'all can't stay here.
Interesting. Yeah, I think
So, anyways,
so. They were there first.
evidently we were there first. Yeah,
Yeah, that's
you know,
I guess just some goodwill because I don't know. That seems like you wouldn't. I mean, it's an apartment complex or um apartment complex or what was it?
the condominiums.
Condominiums. Yeah.
Yeah,
So yeah, you don't own any of the parking, do you?
I
Maybe
wouldn't
just
think so.
right outside yours, maybe. But
Yeah,
yeah, that's a
so I don't know.
interesting situation.
Goodwill thing to do, do whatever we did, I'm sure. But anyways, Mike said he had a residential lady call and swear him up and down because he missed a window in the weather. Oh my God. She said Mike said he talked to her like a dog, talked to him like a dog. That is something, man, how that happens, Smaller they are, the more pain in the butt they are sometimes. That's the reality of that. Oh my. Let's see. Corey said he got caught up in a bitter divorce, and the soon to be ex wife came outside with a gun telling him to leave. I told the client I'm not coming back unless I was paid up front, and she was not there. Oh my God. A lot of people wouldn't have handled that probably as well as you did. Corey, I guess it, you know, probably had to be a bad situation, I'm sure. I can say I've never been ran off with a gun in my 46 years. Been ran off, but never with a gun. And you're braver than me to even go back, prepay or not. You know, I just, I'd have different feelings on that for sure, my friend. Goodness gracious. So y'all have had a pretty good day too. It sounds like, and pretty good experiences. So we'll see what's happening with that. I did have my granddaughter stop by again this morning. Came in to see us. She was on her way to summer camp, I think they call it, or
Yeah.
yeah, summer camp, and they were actually going to a Bats baseball game. That's our AAA affiliate here in Louisville today. So it was good to see Caroline. She made me a little bracelet to wear out of these little rubber band things. So that was pretty cool. She looked good coming in here the last couple mornings. Kyle's been bringing her by before he drops her off. So, anyways, that's how our morning's off to today. We other than that, we're out and about trying to get as much as we can get done before the weather gets here. Um, we'll see how that goes. Let's see. Mike said it was a small project. I ended up planting the stuff in the rain. However, it was light rain. She said, I didn't want you to work in the rain because I can't supervise you and make sure you're planting it right.
Wow.
What do you think of that, Kyle? That's funny. Mike said he had a lady said she didn't appreciate him out there planting her landscape in the rain because she didn't want to stand out there in the rain and supervise him to make sure he was doing it right. Oh my God. Just tell her to peek out the dang on window. In the spirit of honesty, Mike said, I should have handled it differently. I gave her the old Aaron Walls. Oh God. Dare we ask what the old Aaron Walls is? Or do you know,
The
Danny?
purple Wally. I think it's just probably not, like the old purple Wally would do.
Yeah. Oh, maybe.
What he talks about sometimes he doesn't have the most patience and things can happen.
Nice. John said the sun is shining in Elizabethtown, Pennsylvania. Good for you guys, man. That it's supposed to come out here Thursday afternoon late or Friday for sure. So we'll see, John. I don't know. I'm sure sunglasses will be selling off the racks when it does come out because we haven't had too many days of good sun. So they'll be flying off the shelf. I'm glad you guys are getting to get some stuff done. Tim Brennan, my buddy up there in New York, around Schenectady, New York, the Albany, New York kind of area. For you guys, just as a point of reference, he sent me a thing the other day where they're pretty daggone wet there. He said red thread's killing them, fungus in their lawns. So we just need some sun for a while. You know, it'd be it'd be nice. And I don't know about Charles' allergies. I mean, we're not turning this into a medical show, but I'll tell you what, man, it just seems like allergy season's just gone on and on and on and on. So I don't know. You been affected much by that, Daniel?
Not really.
I felt more in my eyes than anywhere else. And this morning is like 5 after 7, and I let two really good sneezes go here in the office. And I was like, man, that's a couple hours earlier than normal. Normally it's around 9 or so, but it got going. Oh Lord. Seth said, speaking of E Town or Elizabethtown, he said Elizabethtown, Kentucky got 6 inches of rain in an hour on Monday.
Wow.
That's some pretty good rainfall rates there. That is crazy. So it is what it is. Oh, Lord. Mike said when they do get a little bit of sun down there, it feels so humid, it feels like it's raining. I can believe that humidity was crazy here Sunday, especially Sunday early. So here we are talking about the weather. We need to get our boys from BAM on here, one of them. We'll see if we can make that happen Friday. It's been a little while since we've had them on. So, but anyway, Seth, I'm glad y'all got some sun, and we'll see. Hopefully, we get some sun here pretty soon. Looking for a great day, to say the least. Looking for a great show. And Aaron's already educated me a little bit on the challenges involved with metal roofing and Christmas lights. But yeah, we're gonna have a great show, great day. We're gonna take a short break, and we'll be right back. And speaking of the Profit Circle, next Wednesday, we've got our webinar coming up. It's Wednesday, June 25th, 7 p.m., and we're going to have a open webinar this month. We've been doing a whole lot of talking and about bidding and whatnot, so we're going to we're going to open that up. If you would like to check it out, Daniel, how they go about checking that webinar out with us?
Yeah, so it's in the link is in the Profit Circle. Is also now on our Facebook page. It's our most recent post as of now, but it will be, still on our feed. So you can go to our Facebook page to find the link, or to the Profit Circle. You can get to the Profit Circle by going either directly to the Profit Circle in a few different ways, which I'll talk about. You can, if you're listening to this as a replay, it will be in the episode description, so you can find the link there. You can also go to our website, profitsareus.com. Click on the home, like you'll land on the homepage, and it's right there for the link to the Profit Circle. Click the button that says the Profit Circle. It's pretty basic. You can also, one final way, if you want to go directly to it, patreon.com/the Profit Circle. That's patreon.com/the Profit Circle.
Thanks, Daniel. So there you go. We're looking forward to that next Wednesday night at 7 p.m. For everybody that's already in the Profit Circle. It's going to be a fun evening. We're going to talk about how to bid a job and actually calculating, going through cost sheets, if you will, and how important that is to your company. Because that's what I want to talk about today, is how important it is to understand your cost per hour of operation. And I think I created a little confusion the other day on my show, because we got some feedback on it and on why the cost per hour is so important, if I'm not bidding based on an hourly rate. And I think here's what I want everybody to understand is pricing. Even though you offer flat rate pricing, and we do a whole lot of it here at Wayne's Lawn Service, because generally flat rate pricing is going to be more profitable, just because you're getting what the market will bear and not just what it costs to do the job. But the reason that knowing and understanding what your cost per hour are is simply very basically broken down into any estimate that you do is going to be time and material for something, right? Whether you're doing, let's just go outside the lawn and landscape industry. Let's say you're painting a house or, putting on a roof. We work with roofing contractors, tree companies. It doesn't matter what you're doing, power washing, holiday lighting, mowing, it's any business that you're in, it's calculating time and material. And a lot of guys say, well, I just bid the job. Well, okay, you bid the job based on what the market will bear or whatever you want to bid the job at. And yeah, certainly a lot of times if you went strictly by, man, that took us 3 hours and my cost per hour of operations only $100 an hour. Well, we're not suggesting that you charge $300 for that job. We're saying, hey, know where the break even point is, but if you can get $650 for that job or $1,000 for that job, then absolutely you're going to sell it for $1,000. And I think that needs to be the main takeaway. And we're actually going to do a video on this as well, because there is a lot of confusion out there. And, even for guys that are just mowing lawns, when you look at it oversimplified, you're flat rate on your pricing anyway. Right, Daniel? I mean, you're going out and you're saying, hey, I'll mow your lawn for $60 or $100 or $400 a cut. That's flat rate pricing. But what we need to know is what's our cost per hour to provide that service? Because one of the videos that I was watching the other day about it, there was some confusion on, well, why would I want to leave all that money on the table? And why is it even important to know what my cost per hour are for a paper clip or a truck or, whatever examples that they were using? Well, it's not necessarily, I don't want you to look at it that way. The reason you need to look at it from a cost per hour basis, regardless of what methodology you're using, is just because you can go out and sell a painting job, let's say for $1,000 to paint a room for somebody.
Yeah.
You're still going to have a truck to get there. You're going to have paintbrushes involved. You're going to have material involved.
Paint, rollers, yeah, or whatever, painter's tape, the things they put down. You're going to have expenses.
You've got overhead. And,
yeah.
And that overhead needs to be taken into consideration, regardless, even if you're flat rating jobs. And again, like I said, we flat rate a whole lot of the work we do here, realistically.
Well, it's great whenever you can talk about, okay, I can look back at 2024 and know I made X percent of profit because the numbers line up that way. Kind of like you're talking about working, from the top down. But you can't, as we were talking about, and we'll get in further in the video, you can't this year, in this moment, say, I just made X percent profit on that job, because you don't know your current year's numbers yet. Like, you're living in this year. So you don't know if you just made 10%, 20%, 30%. You may be like, oh, I made around 30% or whatever, but you don't know that you made 32.5%.
And
right?
You could say, well, why is that important? Well, it's important because ultimately you're running a business, regardless of what service industry you're in. It's like my buddy John Stuber, who's got dog kennels, for God's sakes. He still has overhead and expenses.
Right. And the fact is, like, this year's expenses are going to be completely different than last year's. This may be the same expenses, but different numbers to those expenses, because maybe, you had a truck breakdown, so you had, to pay out of your business had to pay.
You got to have a budget,
but you had point. Maybe you spent $1,000 more this year so far on maintenance than you did last year, and you spent X amount more on marketing. Even, some people don't do marketing or believe in marketing, but that's maybe another example or whatever. So it's not even just the fact that, hey, now I know that I made X percent profit per year, but if you don't know exactly your expenses and your cost in that given moment, then you don't know truly if you're making money.
And a lot of the videos,
like you're talking about, maybe the service is so over, exaggerated compared to a service like mowing that, okay, I know I'm at least still making money, but
right.
Is that a sustainable method if you just wait 52 weeks to figure out if you made money?
Well, and
how much you
to
made.
That point, I can hear somebody saying, well, I don't have to wait all year. I know on that job I charged $800 and I had $300 of material in it. So I had $500 and I paid a helper 150 to help
which
me.
is a really
You know,
uneducated way of looking at
that
it, frankly, because they aren't taking into account any of the other costs.
yeah, the cost to get there, truck, fuel, repairs,
right.
all those things,
Replacing the equipment.
the correct. And even if it's
Insurance.
just, hey, let's look at it from a power washing standpoint. God, I know Tommy Reed,
Yeah.
here the power washers that I know very well. We've worked with him and helped him. I mean, his concern is, hey, what's that power washer cost me? What's it cost me per hour to run? I know, hey, I've got to sell this many jobs during the year
Yeah.
to cover my cost.
What are the maintenance costs on that?
So
How do you
regardless of
for
what
every job?
the selling price is, and yeah, you can look at every job and say, hey, I had $300 in labor and I had $57 in, material, and I had, I don't know what's the rest of it. Let's say, labor, material, and it took me 3 hours to do it, and I charged $1,250.
Yeah. Well, in this particular case, somebody thinking about it from a flat rate probably isn't looking at it took me 3 hours to do it. So that isn't even taken into consideration.
So the whole point is, regardless of how you're pricing your jobs, even though you're doing it on a flat rate basis, and absolutely flat rate your work, there's a whole lot of time and effort put into any industry, regardless of what it is you're doing. I'm not going to repeat all those things we've already repeated, but regardless of what service you're providing, it's important to know where the break even point is.
Yeah.
Not that you're wanting to work for break even money,
but you can't know.
But you don't know what you don't know by not knowing. And the only way that knowing that your numbers becomes important to somebody is when you begin to scale your business a little bit. There were times when I was doing literally 12 yards that didn't bother me. I didn't even think about it because
but that still doesn't. But even you saying that, you should still know.
You should still know.
Like you can say, "Oh, I only have X amount of yards," but you should still know because, okay, that means you have less opportunity to make a profit. So you need to maximize the profit on the small amount of jobs you do have.
Yeah, absolutely.
I mean, we had someone buy our cost calculation spreadsheet that had 20 yards?
He guy had
or something like that?
20 yards, 20? And his son and daughter mowed most of it. And it was summer money for them.
Yeah.
But he wanted to make sure they were profitable on the jobs.
Right.
Yeah,
and like you said.
So it doesn't matter how many you're doing, and it's not going to determine, or it's not going to fully determine your selling price.
Yeah.
Because you're going to get what the market will bear through your pricing model.
Right.
So whether you want to price it, it's like us with holiday lights. Kyle sat down and figured out, hey, what's it cost us to put up a linear foot of lights, based on using this type of bulb, this type of spacing and whatnot. So, and our numbers are different than everybody else's. Right. And that's something I want everybody to know. That's why we'll tell anybody, hey, this is what we charge, but don't you do this, because everybody's overhead's different. Everybody's desired profit margin's different. We're all buying at different levels.
Yeah.
But it was like, I think, and I didn't look this up, but I could have and should have, but I think like on lighting, our material cost was somewhere around $1 something a foot. Not counting our labor, not counting our additional overhead, but our actual cost.
Right.
For the cord and the bulb and the ends. So I think we were somewhere just in our world, best I remember, all in about $4 or $3 something a foot. So I'm not saying that's the number for you guys to use. What I'm saying is, sit down and break your costs down so you know where that number's at for you. And if you can go out and you sell a lighting job at $9 a foot or $12 a foot or whatever it is you're selling a linear foot of lights for, then you're going to get, my point is, you flat rate the job, you get what the market will bear. Now, efficiency factors go into any job we're talking about as well. And I've seen a lot of videos that talk about, well, I don't worry about the hills, or I don't worry, guy was talking about mowing, and he says, well, I don't really worry about the hills or curbs or, the landscape beds. Well, you got to worry about that because that is affecting the time to do the job.
Right.
That'd be like us on a lighting job, or you, if you're doing holiday lighting, saying, well, the pitch of the roof doesn't matter.
Yeah. And I don't know if this is a true statement, so I'm just thinking about it as you said it. But does it matter even more in mowing? Because you have to be so much more efficient. Like you have,
because the market won't bear such a high price, there's not as much cushion.
and because like you may do 2 landscape lighting jobs in a day, let's just say. So that means it doesn't really matter as much if it takes you 3 hours and 15 minutes to do it or 3 hours and 25 minutes to do it, right? Like there's not a big difference there. But in mowing it, there's a big difference if it takes you 6 minutes or if it takes you 9 minutes or 12 minutes.
Because the reoccurrence of the service.
And you're doing in this job based
35 times a year, or 40 times a year.
And the fact that you have to go do it. If you say if it takes me 6 minutes, but it takes me 12 minutes, so that's how I schedule the rest of my route. Now all of a sudden I can only do half the work in that day.
Right. And now everything's off.
Right.
But if you looked at, hey, well, half the day, let's look from a mowing, since we're on mowing, even if you're at $40 a lawn, and I'm not suggesting what price is right or wrong, that's just an example, but 40 lawns a day and doing 10 lawns versus $40 a lawn and doing 20 lawns is a big difference in gross revenue and a big difference in potential net income. So that's why we wanted to address it and talk about it a little bit, that even though you're flat rating the jobs, and to a certain extent, yes, it is very specific to the mowing side of the service industry, because there is such a narrow margin of opportunity for true profit for those guys that really want to know their numbers. And I'm not going to say you don't care about your numbers. You just don't know what you don't know of why it's important. And that's what I want to everybody to understand. And that's why we're going to talk about this in the Profit Circle. And I'm going to do a webinar in the Profit Circle on cost calculations, how to recover cost for a truck, how to recover cost for a trailer, how to recover labor cost, how to recover fill in the blank, whatever it is you're using, Z sprays, power washers, lawnmowers, tractors, skid steers. It doesn't matter what the equipment is. It doesn't matter what the service is. I mean, hell, you for guys that are doing a whole lot of Christmas lights, let's say, a lot of them may own a lift or lease or rent a lift. Now, if you rent a lift to go out and do the lights, that's an easy cost recovery. You know why that's so easy, Daniel?
You just put it into that job.
You just put it into the job.
Yeah.
It's a specific expense to the job. I wasn't setting you up for failure. I just knew you'd know the answer. But if I go out and buy that lift, now I got to figure out, how do I assign a certain percentage of that cost to each job that I'm doing based on, here's the key factor, what do all estimates have in them? Time. How long is that lift going to be on that job? How am I going to recover the cost of that? Now, a lot of guys will say, well, it really don't matter because last year I did X and I had X left over. My profit margin's good. How many of y'all believe that that's the mindset that, these companies use? Major companies I'm talking about, like Skag and John Deere and Ferris and Bobcat and Caterpillar. I guarantee you those guys aren't using.
They aren't hoping at the end of the year things worked out.
They're not saying, hey, well, hopefully I'm just going to flat rate it, not worry about what it really costs me because the market is good enough that I can charge enough. That's what the unknown contractor, that's the world they live in. That's the world I lived in for 9 years. I didn't know why it was working or not working. I just knew that for the first 9 years it wasn't working, and I better figure out how to make it work. And the way to make it work is figure out what it costs me to do the job to help me establish a minimum, But it's like snow plowing. We look at a job, we say, hey, man, it's going to take us 30 minutes to plow this small lot, let's say, or 40-minute, whatever that time frame is. We're certainly not going to plow that lot for $100.
Right.
I mean, even if we want to make $250 an hour, we've put a better value on that service
Than $125.
than $125. So
Right.
we're not going to go out.
You're not gonna
charge by the hour.
right.
We're flat rating the service up to a certain threshold of snow. We'll get that into that in snow season, but
you also know that is not money made. That's what you know. And I think
what we know.
What people think they don't need to know.
Right. They just look at, hey, this is what we build. This is what my expenses were.
Cost was, and
this is the hard cost. Let's call them hard cost.
Yeah.
These are the hard cost, but hey, what are the soft cost or the indirect cost of that? So that's why it's so important to know and to establish your minimums. And we make a ton of money on minimum flat rate pricing jobs. I'm just, I'd rather let's look at it from spraying lawns, for an example. Our break even point on, I'd have to look it up exactly, but our break even point on like 3,000 square feet may be $24. Okay. But we're certainly not going to go out and spray a lawn for $24. We're just not going to do it. I mean, that's where you establish a minimum based on what your break even point is at a certain margin. Maybe that for us, that break even point with a 30% margin may be $20, $24, $25. I'd have to look and see for sure. But I know the market will bear more than that. So our minimum on a cost sheet, let's say, when you break it into square footage, is where we have 40. Katie, what's our minimum for spray? It doesn't really matter. 45, 40, like 48. So my whole point is use it to establish a minimum for any service you provide. That's why it's important to know your cost. And you can't understand that side of it until you develop and implement a budget of, hey, we anticipate spending this much money on fill in the blank on what it is. True that. John says True Green would spray it for $24.95, but we can't afford to. We're too small to do that. But that is an absolute correct point. Fred, my buddy up there in the Indianapolis area, says the minimum price should be based on time to perform and your desired labor rate return. Your sales skills, market, and relationship with client then allows you to get more. Well said. That's just it. Get what the market will bear. And what it will help you also with, what it also helps you by knowing those numbers is maybe the clientele that you're currently going after doesn't fit for the margin you want to make. If that margin's 100%, 200%, 80%, 20%, fill in the blank on what you want that desired margin to be. But again, it doesn't matter what service it is you're providing. You should know what your costs are to set your baseline minimums up and not just say, well, that's what the going rate is in our area. Well, that's great. Sell it at whatever you can sell it for. I don't think you're going to get any pushback from anybody that would tell you not to sell it for what you could get. But also, the next question is that I want to touch base on a little bit, Daniel, is have you actually tried to push it? Have you tried to push even what you perceive as the high-end price some? Because I think sometimes, and I see this a lot with contractors in snow, for an example, because snow, the market has allowed for a higher price, if you will. Okay. the supply and demand, and I think the supply and demand for snow is going to get more profitable due to the insurance side of that problem that brings along for a lot of companies. But but like Tommy, for an example, that does a whole lot of power washing. I mean, Tommy does a ton of power washing. DJ Brock, a ton of power washing, probably one of the largest here in the city. Those guys understand, hey, the market will pay this, but this is what it cost us. It was like when I was going to get my roof power washed back in the spring before I realized I was probably going to need a new roof. I was going to get Tommy's like, well, man, I'll do it for you, probably a couple $100, man. He says, this is a $800 job any other day, but I'll do it for you for a couple $100. We can get it done and still make a little. My whole point to that is he knew his cost. He knew how low he could go if he wanted to go low, but he's selling it what the market will bear. And that is the whole point. Sell at what the market will bear. If you really want to do yourself a favor, though, know what your costs per hour are. So you've got a good parameter to look at any time you're moving along during the season, and not just look at a pile of cash that's left over at the end of the year and say, well, damn, we made 38.7% or 216% last year or up or year to date. Don't look at it from the top down. Look at it from the bottom up. And look at it from, hey, what's it cost us to do the job? What can we potentially do to be more efficient? And by all means, have some methodology of looking at jobs and estimating the time to complete the jobs. Because there's a lot of videos. I just watched one yesterday. Watched two, actually. Two different YouTube guys had out there. Saw two of them on talking about they really don't worry about the inefficiencies of the job. They just, it's this amount. Well, how do you not worry, Daniel, about the inefficiencies of the job? I know we touched on it a minute ago.
Yeah,
but
just lack of knowledge.
It's just
lack of understanding.
It's
the same thing that we didn't. I mean, that you knew about overlap, but didn't truly understand as far as the big picture goes until we did that research and we had that information about what we learned.
Yes,
it's just a lack of knowledge and a lack of understanding, and how even sometimes small percentages add up over time, even in a single job. In this instance, making turns can have a huge.
And for our new listeners that don't know that, we're not patting ourselves on the back on that, but we had one of the larger Cub Cadet.
It's out there now.
Yeah, it's out there now. We were doing a seminar on bidding and contracts up in Ohio, and one of their regional vice presidents were there, and I was talking about the cost of overlap, and he came up to me after the seminar and he was talking to me about it. He says, man, that's crazy. Does it really cost that much? He said, explain that to me. And because the example I used in our seminar was the difference between a 2-inch overlap and a 4-inch overlap. At that point in time, this goes back several years. I don't know. It was like $80 a day or $90 a day per mower, which doesn't sound like a big deal, but a guy running 3 mowers, that's $270 a day in a season that's 150 days long. All of a sudden, this is a big number on overlap. So they had us do some research on that a lot of you guys listening to us participated in, actually, where we just had you mow and then measured the overlap side of that. So without getting into that whole thing, if you want to see it, you can go to their website. All of our findings are on there. But the point is efficiency on jobs, whether it's overlap of the equipment in a mowing situation or any piece of equipment that it doesn't have to be just mowing lawns. I mean, it can be aeration. It can be anything. It can be Z sprays. It doesn't matter what the overlap's involved with, what the cost of that overlap is. That's one inefficiency. And as well as contour of the ground, slope of the hills. So those things are very important. But it's also very easy as an owner.
I have
Go
a
ahead,
question.
Daniel.
when it comes to overlap, let's say you figure out, okay, I know I have an overlap of an average of
Yeah.
4 inches per turn or whatever you just said. What if you figured out that and then somehow, I don't know what the equation would be, it's probably pretty simple. Figure out, okay, if I'm overlapping 4% each turn, this yard's make it easy, 1,000 square feet. That means what I'm really mowing isn't 1,000 square feet, it's 1,400 square feet. Could you then make that like a base your cost off of 1,400 square feet because you know that's what you're mowing versus the 1,000?
That's where within our our estimating guide that we have available for
Yeah.
people, we talk about the efficiency factor of the job.
Right. I know you have the particular
So
percentages, but I didn't know if that was like another alternative way to
So
kind of do it.
what you would do would be by the undulation of the yard.
Yeah.
Okay. Instead of being at an 80% efficiency, you may be at a 65% efficiency, which increases changing that efficiency factor when you're using a system allows everything to be increased proportionally to that lower efficiency. Labor, oil changes, maintenance, because that lawnmower, to your point, is mowing longer, which means it's running ours up and it's cutting grass that's already been cut in an overlap situation.
Yeah.
Okay. And your labor costs are getting higher.
Right.
So that's why within our bidding system, the efficiency factor that we implement within that and is how it compensates for all the expenses you have, all the increases in those expenses. So Darren Gruner says undulation. Katie, how can we best describe undulation to Darren Gruner? How much the terrain goes up and down. Sorry for using that word. Thank you, Darren. So, so when you got like my yard, I'll use my yard for a perfect example. It's very small. I'm in a cul-de-sac. The front yard is maybe 1,200 square feet. But if a guy tried mowing that with a 52-inch lawnmower, it would just be so uneven, it would be crazy, or 61, you know. So, but it's due to the undulation of the yard, the contour of the lawn, the slope change, the bumpiness. There you go, Katie. The bumpiness, the bumpiness of the yard. So all those things are so very important. So let's take that back a minute and go to why it's important to know your cost per hour for your flat rate pricing. What would be a good summary, Daniel? Why, in your mind?
I think it's important for a couple main reasons. One, you can be more up to date and know what's going on within your business on a job to job basis. You can set your minimum, which is going to allow you to, especially in services like mowing that aren't as, crazy profit margins as other things like, snow or landscaping. It's going to allow you to, obviously know what you need to charge to even have any profit or meet your break even point. So you can be more competitive because you know exactly what that job, is going to cost you. You can set more jobs accurately per hour, so your schedule is more accurate, which obviously that leads to a whole nother set of wins when it comes to, not having unhappy customers, having happier employees, all the things. Gosh, there's just so many. But I think the biggest one is just whenever you say it's what was the thing that you had somebody call or text or email or whatever it was to you one time that said, "Hey, these guys are telling me that I'm making
they're
cutting grass too."
Yeah, they said this was a gentleman in South Carolina. Actually, his name was Clarence. Never will forget it. He said, "These guys are making fun of me down here. Said I'm getting way too technical for a grass cutter."
Yeah,
and my answer was simple. I asked him. I said, "Clarence," I said, "what you got to ask yourself: are you a grass cutter, or are you a business?"
are you a business owner? Yeah,
and whatever it is, whatever your answer to that's going to be your answer.
Yeah, and I think it's unfair to come into this industry and think, oh, it's just simple, it's just basic, and not treat it as something that isn't that, because it's not. Like mowing grass is just the means to. It's no different than painting, power washing, construction, putting in pools, plumbing. It's no different even than Walmart or Ford or Apple. It's just a means of getting other people's money and you spending some money to get it. So if you don't know how much money you're spending to get their money, then you don't know how much money, and truly, like, that's what a business is. You don't you These are things of a business. Just because it's lawn mowing, cutting grass, making tall grass short, whatever you want to call it, to diminish what it is, like, it's still a business. And
That's
that
right.
business is something that, if you want to be in the business, you should treat it with respect as a business.
Absolutely. Well said. Couldn't have said it myself, Daniel. And that's really all it boils down to. You know, I can't think of any successful, quote unquote, real manufacturer out there that says, hey, let's just sell something. Let's see what's left over and let's see what our profit margin is. It's not going to happen. Not going to happen. So I hope that answers the question of why it's important to calculate cost per hour of operation, even though you're charging flat rate pricing. Absolutely charge flat rate, because there's a whole lot of money left on the table when you go by the hour. But you owe it to yourself as a business owner to know why you charge what you charge. Check out our Know Why You Charge What You Charge on our website. If you don't think it's the best $200 you've ever spent in your life, it's absolutely free. If you really want to know what it costs to operate your business and you want to be able to do it quickly on an Excel spreadsheet, those sheets will do it regardless of what industry you're in. Guarantee it. Guarantee it. That's my guarantee to you. Since 1990, we've had less than a handful of those sent back to us saying, no, it doesn't work. We don't even get them back. We just let you keep them because we know what? We know you're really using it. But if you need the $200, we'd be happy to get it to you to help you make your business. With that being said, we'll see you guys later. Thanks, Daniel.
Yep.
And you guys stay tuned for Darren Gruner. He's up next here on Turfs Up Radio. Your industry, your station. And remember, profit is not a dirty word.